Did you know the Menendez brothers could be released due to new evidence? Lyle and Erik Menendez attracted worldwide media attention during the 1990s, after the shocking murder of their parents in 1989. The couple, a millionaire media executive and his wife, were shotgunned to death inside the den of their Beverly Hills mansion. Their 2 sons were uncovered as the prime suspects after the girlfriend of their therapist leaked their confession tape to the police, and 6 months after the killings, they were arrested on suspicion of murder. 3 court trials followed, with the first captivating the nation as it was live-streamed on new cable TV network, Court TV. After 7 years of legal tug-of-war, Lyle and Erik Menendez were finally both found guilty of murder.
This time, a Los Angeles jury went beyond the tearful testimony of brothers Lyle and Erik Menendez and found them guilty of the shotgun murders of their mother and father.
They have since been in prison for 34 years. But new evidence has come to light in the last year, which could mean the brothers are released immediately. Let's get into it. Cliff Gardner, one of the brothers' appellate attorneys, told 48 Hours that new evidence had come to light, proving that the Menendez brothers were telling the truth about being abused. The evidence in question? A letter, alleged to have been written by Erik Menendez to his cousin Andy Cano in December 1988, about 8 months prior to the killings.
At times I wish I could talk to her about things, you know? Someday. Especially Dad and I, but the way she worships him and tells him everything, I'm so afraid she'll tell him whatever I say. I just can't risk it. Lyle got in a huge fight with her over why we couldn't spend Christmas with the rest of the family. And Mom freaked out and said if he wanted to go, he could go alone. I just don't know why she wants to hurt him like that. Lyle wanted to stay, but Dad wouldn't let him. So now I'm stuck here alone. I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up, thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid you just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know, I'll make it through this. I can handle it, Andy. I need to stop thinking about it.
The recipient of the letter, Andy Cano, testified in both trials, but prosecutors called him a liar and continued to argue that the abuse never happened. The crime was manslaughter, not murder. That has been the defense position from day one. Not that they should walk, but their punishment should be commensurate with what they did. These were kids who were sexually abused their whole lives.
This shows that Andy wasn't making it up. It's contemporaneous evidence from Erik to his cousin Andy about what was happening.
And this becomes so relevant now as in California law. Voluntary manslaughter can result in a sentence of 3 to 11 years in state prison. So an approximate sentence for the deaths of both parents would come to around 25 years, at the very most. As of 2024, Lyle and Erik Menendez have served 34 years in prison, meaning a retrial on manslaughter charges would likely see the brothers released if it were to be successful. And the letter isn't the only piece of evidence that has surfaced. Roy Rosello, a former member of the Puerto Rican boy band Menudo, has come forward claiming that he was also sexually abused by Jose Menendez back in the early 80s, when Rosello was a minor and a member of the band. At the time, Jose Menendez was working as an executive at RCA Records, and RCA signed Menudo to a recording contract. Rosello is now 54 years old. He says in a sworn affidavit filed in 2023 that he went to Jose Menendez's home in the fall of 1983 or 1984. Rosello would have been between 14 and 15 years old at the time. He says he drank a glass of wine, then felt like he had no control over his body. He says Jose Menendez took him to a room and raped him. Rosello also states in the affidavit that he was sexually abused by Jose Menendez on 2 other occasions, right before and right after a performance at Radio City Music Hall in New York. The Menendez brothers' attorney, Cliff Gardner, filed a habeas petition in May 2023 citing the letter and Rossello's affidavit as new evidence that proves his client's convictions should be vacated. Ultimately, it will be up to a judge to decide whether the convictions should be vacated. If they are, then it would be up to the DA's office as to whether they would retry the Menendez case, potentially allowing the defense of sexual abuse and the ability for a jury to return a manslaughter verdict rather than murder. For more than 20 years, Lyle and Erik were imprisoned separately, with Lyle in Mule Creek State Prison in Ione, California, and Erik about 500 miles away at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego County. For years, the brothers communicated in letters. But, in February 2018, Lyle was transferred to another housing unit at Richard J. Donovan. And in April, Erik moved into the same unit as Lyle. They cried and embraced when they saw each other for the first time. In 1999, Erik married his longtime pen pal, Tammy Ruth Saccoman, with whom he shares his stepdaughter, Talia. Tammy wrote a book about their relationship and experiences. He also took up painting and even gifted a portrait to comedian Kathy Griffin, and, with other inmates, made attempts at prison reform. Lyle served as president of inmate government at Mule State Creek Prison and has worked in a support group for other prisoners who endured sexual abuse. From 1996 to 2001, he was married to Anna Erickson. However, the former model divorced him when she found out he had been writing to other women. 2 years later, he married Rebecca Sneed, a former magazine editor turned defense attorney from Sacramento. But despite prison reform, multiple marriages, and frequent media adaptations, the Menendez fight for freedom has never gained as much traction as it has in the last few years. A group of young TikTok users are leading an effort to free the Menendez brothers, believing they were wrongly convicted of murdering their parents. These supporters, some as young as 12, argue that the brothers acted out of fear, and they're advocating for clemency by even writing to Californian law officials. But, despite serving 34 years of their life sentences, it feels like the Lyle and Erik Menendez story isn't over. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Crime Collated.